Hello. Good morning. I'm Ayo Makinde. Welcome to Sunrise this beautiful Saturday morning. Well, as you can see again, I'm home alone. But no. Everyone needs a rest, a bit of a rest here and there from time to time. So, well, it's a privilege to have you with us this morning. Help to make some sense of your Saturday morning. Again, I say my name is Ayo Makinde. You're welcome to the program. Let me begin on a rather somber note, something that's been on for a while, and that is the issue of the flooding. You, of course, saw the report that Channels Television did, special report that Channels Television did, which correspondent Ayola Kasim went to a number of states, including Benue states, to cover the flooding, the effects of climate change, and all those other issues and environmental issues that she's been specialist at for a number of years in this state, in this channel, on Channels Television. So that's something that I think we should talk about. We'll speak a lot more about that this morning, and that is the the state of mind of the flood victims today. You know, if you've been through a bit of a trauma, you would understand that it's not so easy to come back from, right? Even if you haven't, just imagine that someone has been living a certain kind of life, and for whatever reason, that life of theirs changes, and they're never going to come back to that level of life again. Not that life. Even if it's going to be better or worse, the sentimental attachments that they had to some things, or to even to the home, the fact that I'm going home, the comfort of going back home, they're never going to have that again the way they had it before the flooding. So even if the floods abate, how long will it take for them to go back to that same house? How are they going to recover back the things that they had at the time before the flooding? What's the mind? What's the state of their minds now? What's the state of their mental health right now? Again, as I said earlier in the week, depending on the data you're looking at, between 50 and 70 million Nigerians are supposed to be living in one state or the other of mental conditions that is not 100%. So just imagine the catalyzing effect of the floods on many people today. Many of us live in urban Nigeria, yeah, but don't also forget that a good number of us have relatives in the hinterlands and all. A sizable number of us have been indirectly affected as well. Data from the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Social and Disasters said that the flooding has affected something in the region of 3.2 million Nigerians as at the last count. Of course, we know the fatality figures are there. Many have been displaced. So share a thought. If your organization has a corporate social responsibility project, or you have a personal social responsibility project towards helping people, I think this is a good one that you should also go out to. Our job is to present the issues, let you know that the people need help, where they need help. Again, stick with Channels Television. You'll probably even find it on our website. That special report that we did on the flooding is there for you to see and know that these people really do need our help. So go ahead and reach out. Make a note somewhere, set an alarm or something to remind yourself it is something you need to give attention to. Well, I also suspect that in order to do that, you will need some money, right? I hope it's going to be done before the change of the Naira notes. Of course, you're aware of that as well, right? 200 Naira, 500 Naira, 1,000 Naira notes are going to change from December 15 by another 6 weeks or thereabout. All other previous 1,000 Naira, 500 Naira, and 200 Naira notes will be out of use, they will not be legal tender anymore. You can't deceive anyone to say this is 500 Naira when we have a new, completely different looking 500 Naira note. So that is something you need to give attention to when the right time comes. Now, the interesting part of that is the conversation we're having between the CBN and the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, that they weren't consulted. The minister was not consulted. The ministry was not aware that such a thing was going to happen. If memory serves me right, I don't know how we can talk about the Central Bank of Nigeria without talking about finance. And because I thought that that was the purpose of banks, to finance projects. And the Central Bank is the governing bank of all banks in the country. So how it is possible for the Ministry of Finance to not know that the Central Bank of Nigeria is thinking about changing the notes beats me. The president got to know, but the minister didn't get to know. And so both of them are speaking differently. Look, you're supposed to know, you're not supposed to know, and all those things. Don't forget, in the back of that, remember that the federal government, the president, had said a few times, ministries, departments, and agencies should work together. Together. The vice president said, not once, not twice, that we need to have a marriage of fiscal and monetary policies, all in the same mix. And so exactly what is happening here? Who is the puppet? Who is the puppeteer? What exactly is happening such that the ministries, departments, and agencies are not working together? Just imagine the combustion system in your car and the wheels not agreeing. Just imagine it. Your gear and the wheels don't agree. The steering turns right. Your tires go left. Oh God, how are you going to drive? And we're wondering why we don't have development. I don't think we should wonder too much, should we? Do we have an idea? Okay, maybe I'm speaking a little too mundane. Maybe I don't know the politics of it or the facts of the issues, but what's in the news is what's in the news. Both say, well, the minister says she, who is supposed to be supervising all things finance all over Nigeria, isn't aware that the notes are going to change. I'm not going to say any more than that. So let's just switch quickly to the menu for this morning. And naturally, we would want to start with a focus on current security challenges that we have on our hands in the country today. What are those things? What are the things that we should be giving attention to? This is in the light of the UK and US terror alerts to their own nationals in the country. And those are not the only countries talking about that. And then we'll look at the plan to redesign the Naira notes. Of course, we just mentioned that. Some are for, some are against. What the issues, what reasons are adduced by the CBN, how valid are those? You may want to listen on this morning. We'll be having also Indomie Heroes Awards. What that is about? No, I don't know whether it's going to include cooking here. No, but I don't know, but I guess you'll wait to see. Then today, lifestyle will be about flood victims and their mental health. A little understanding, a better understanding of the issues that they have to deal with and what we can do to support them, all of us, will need to get to discuss later on. And then our artist of the week is man you need to listen to later on today. So do stay with us. In the event you have not got your cup of cocoa, I got mine here. And, oh, you're still there? Get yours. Thank you for staying with us. You know, for more than a decade, Nigeria has had to deal with various security challenges over the years: insurgency, kidnapping, banditry, the works, ritual killings, outright armed robbery, farmer herder clashes. It would seem like insecurity just shape shifts from time to time. And these have featured prominently with regularity in the country's domestic security calculus. And also, it's been said and written by many that our country's security needs to find a way to deal with all the things that we need to deal with. But add that to the mix. The US and UK issued those security advisories warning their own people in the country of an elevated risk of terror attacks in Abuja. Of course, following the alerts, SSS, that's a state security service, advised Nigerians to remain calm but cautious. And of course, more foreign missions in Nigeria seem to have raised security alerts for an impending terrorist attack on the capital city, Abuja, in particular. The embassies of Denmark, Ireland, Bulgaria, Finland, and Germany in the capital have raised similar alerts following that of the US and UK, not forgetting, I think, Australia as well. This morning, let's have a conversation around that, implications and all, with Laddie Thompson, who, of course, has featured regularly here on our program. He's a security consultant, as well as Professor Ademola Abbas, who is a professor of international law and security analyst as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Well, let me begin with you, Pastor Thompson. Is this another, because you've said that over time, that as far as you're concerned, these insecurity issues are going to evolve, so to speak, from one thing to another if certain needful things are not done. So is this another of those phases, or this is just a one-off for some other reasons not unknown in the schematics?
Well, thank you very much, Ayo. It's been quite a while. And I think you've got it spot on. For many years, I have said that when a doctor does not diagnose accurately, his prescriptions will keep being wrong. We've said this for more than 10 years, 15 now. We are dealing with a hydra, a shapeshifter, extremely intelligent. It wears a cover of religion, but actually it's a supremacist agenda that collapses nations from within. Now, again, we are talking about the tribal advisory or something. I think the way we need to look at this is very simple. There's a Latin phrase, I think it's ignoratio elenchi. Ignoratio elenchi doesn't mean you are ignorant. It just means that you are ignoring refutation. It means you are missing the point. You see, all the hula baloo about the US tribal advisory is extremely misplaced because Nigeria is yet to understand that strategy is what we need. Strategy is more important than power, is more important than your plan. The absence of a suitable strategy is the reason why our temperatures are raised like this from time to time. Look, travel advisories from the US and every other nation of the world are vectors that they normally use to project the fact that they have value to the worth of the lives of their citizens. So when we see, we receive an advisory like that, the lack of strategy. You see, I've always said this thing, and you will bear me witness. I've said this for more than 15 years here, and this thing is still going on, that there are 4 things basically that any nation uses to respond to this threat, to this hydra-headed monster that has moves in high places, infiltrates nations. It's very patient. It's extremely intelligent. It studies you, knows how to confuse you. And when it wants to collapse you finally, it knows when to move. Now, we continue to ignore that because I said, first of all, the military tactics has to change. A lot of the Nigerian generals are old school. We're talking about Clausewitz, Trinity of War. Those strategies cannot handle hybrid threats. Those are not strategies that you're going to use today for the war of narratives or the asymmetrical warfare that this hydra-headed war form uses. Secondly, you must have an ideology for your own nation that is a counter-ideology to that which this threat is posing. Number 3, you must have a value system that makes your citizens ready to, if need be, give up their lives to protect the state. And the 4th one, of course, is the fact that your architecture is thought. Look, when you face a global phenomenon with a local face, like what we are facing, you can't afford not to have your strategy in place. You can't afford to be a scatterbrain. You can't afford that ignoratio elenchi that I spoke about. If not, we know where this will end. I've been saying this over and over again, and the moment it shifts its shape, the moment it goes again, people panic. Now, take note of something I'm about to say to you right now. Nigerians have been bludgeoned with the whip of poverty. Poverty has been weaponized against the Nigerian, number 1. Number 2, whatever strategies these terrorists are using is succeeding. Nigerians are terrorized all over the country. The value of human worth has taken a dive. So, what am I trying to say to us here? It is time that we realize that it is the lack of a coherent, consistent strategy on the part of this government that makes it even look as if, I want to make a confession here, mathematization, like I said, of reality. If you look at the responses of Nigeria here, it is almost as if somebody in the setup of this nation's government is assisting the process, that displacement process that has been documented to be used by this hydra. So you see, all that hullabaloo over the travel advisory is not the issue. The major issue is this: what is the structured response of Nigeria? You see, we are conditioned by reflex in Nigeria not to realize that there's a difference between when you respond to something and when you react to it. So everybody, in media inclusive, and this is a dangerous curve, because this, shall I tell you the truth? We can beat this thing easily if we have the right strategy. But as long as we continue to do the wrong things step after step,
okay,
I don't think we're going to beat this thing.
Okay. You tell us more about that strategy, but let me ask Professor Abbas. When you say it's, sounds like you're saying that the advisories are a useless distraction to the issues. Professor Abbas, one of the issues that's been raised in the course of the week is that maybe there wasn't a security threat indeed. Maybe it was just something being said by some people to create certain, as Thompson put it, narratives concerning the country. So it sounds then that it's some kind of silent diplomatic row or tiff between nations and Nigeria or whatever it is, What do you make of all of this that is going on, especially from the diplomatic angle? What are the risks that could evolve from this?
Oh, thank you very much, Ayo. Thanks for having me once again. Well, look, I heard what Mr. Wally Thompson said. Largely, I agree with most of the things he said, but I have a different take on, for instance, your question about the narrative being put out there, the advisory from the UK and US. Look, when things like this happen, let's first understand that we live in a very cynical country. And our political leadership has conditioned Nigerians to be very cynical, even among ourselves. Yesterday, you woke up to the CBN governor saying that we want to change the color of Naira and this and that. A day after, you have your Minister for Finance in the same cabinet, the same government, coming out and saying, we are not aware of that. And you had the CBN governor responding, saying, we don't need to tell anybody because we've got approval from the president. You're talking about this are just gibberish. All these compromise the legitimacy of the government. And when that happens, then citizens are free to begin to suspect what comes out of that particular government. Now, US, UK, and other Western countries have shown clearly, and I'm not referring to this particular advisory, that they take the life of their citizens far more importantly than the Nigerian government takes the life of its own citizens. So we know that. We don't need to go into that. Number two, it's very standard for any government to issue travel advisory to its citizens. That, look, these are countries advised not to go to, except you have very essential businesses to do. That is to say, the government will be aware that you are there and this and that. So there's nothing untoward. There is nothing extraordinary in any government issuing a travel advisory to its own people. Let that get down clear. But because we live in a system in which we have been conditioned to think otherwise. And by the way, Ayo, I am by no means being naive. I am not saying that, there cannot be circumstances that would go more than meet the eye. That's not what I'm saying here. But I'm saying, let's for once forget the messenger and focus on the message. And what is the message? The message is just a threat to our country. Do we even need the US or UK to tell us there are threats to the Nigerian security system? We live with threats every single day. It is possible that the level of intelligence that we do in Nigeria here is not up to the level of other people who are supposed to be our partners. So there's nothing wrong in them in saying, look, I'm advising my citizens not to go to this particular country or to be careful when they go to this country. Now, it's a different argument, and I do understand the sensitivity of the Nigerian government. If the government says, look, we understand, but you should be talking to us. Don't forget, 2 days before US and US issued that advisory to Nigeria, they did the same thing to South Africa. South Africans did not argue that they shouldn't have done that. They said, you should have come and discussed the threat with us before you went public. That is a very intelligent response to it. So let us try to separate all this thing from, you're going to have conspiracy theories, elections are coming and this and that. Look, I read yesterday overnight, somebody said, they wanted to change this, or what is it called? This threat is because US also have been fingered in the theft of Nigerian oil and blah, blah, blah. Now they are raising this issue. All this is nonsense. We know as Nigerians, our oil is being stolen. How do we live in a country in which we're not talking about needles, we're talking about trucks, we're talking about massive ships cut oil out of this country? We were in the same country a week ago when they discovered a particular point when this oil was being this and that, was being trafficked, and immediately the place went on fire. Are we investigating the person? Are we investigating all those things? The essence of things that we have become very, very despondent, and quite rightly so, in the political leadership of this country. So therefore, anything that comes from their mouth, we do not trust. And let us pay attention very, very carefully to the message that is coming from other parts who are involved in it, and not necessarily the messenger. I think for me, that is my initial take on this.
Well, Prof, before I go back to Pastor Thompson, speak to this other angle of something that came up in the course of the week while we discussed along this line, the issue of security education of Nigerians. Look, at the end of the day, I mean, the discordant tunes coming from governments, ministries, departments, and agencies at all levels, there are those who would say it makes the country even more vulnerable when there is no cohesiveness among those who are supposed to be working together to secure Nigerians. There is a problem that the people themselves have to deal with. How significant is that in the scheme of things? I mean, you just cited just one instance between the Minister of Finance and the CBN governor, who are all in the finance industry of the country. The supervisor of the industry, if I can put it in that term, would be the Minister of Finance. But anyway, that's just one of the issues. Another one that is similar is that in giving humanitarian aids to victims of flooding, we know that Naira is doing something in collaboration with the Nigeria Air Force. But then we also know that the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs is doing something altogether differently. And they're both government agencies, federal government agencies. In that same space, look at the challenges of cohesion between security forces at various levels. And the president himself has spoken to that. How well or not they are, synergizing to deal with the security challenges are, it's another kettle of fish altogether. So speak to the cohesiveness of operations of government agencies, because there are those who will wonder, how can we make the kind of significant progress we want to make if government agencies that are supposed to be like an engine are working, the radiator is working differently from the wiper water supply, working differently from the exhaust and all of those things. So we may not be able to have the kind of progress that we need to have as a nation, and it puts the people at risk, doesn't it?
Well, Ayo, thank you very much. It absolutely does.
Okay, we'll come back to him. I think that's just a network issue. Pastor Thompson, if you listen to that question, could you please go ahead and attempt to look at it yourself?
If you want to
look, I've told you that we need to get to the point of what they call mathematization of it.
Sorry, Professor Abbas, just hold on 1 second. When we couldn't hear you, let's just deal with your network issues and then we'll come back to you. Go ahead, Pastor Thompson.
Yes, I've said to us that there needs to be what we call the mathematization of inquiry. If we look at the performance of this government in the response to this Hydra-headed terror threat, what comes out when you crunch numbers is that it seems that some elements within the government, moles within, are working together with this agenda to collapse this country from within. And I'm saying this with all seriousness because from the policies of so-called absorbing terrorists who are captured, so-called debriefing, so-called, I don't know what process they developed in Nigeria that is not existent anywhere else in the world, and absorbing them into the Nigerian army to demoralize our people, to the lack of interagency cooperation that you're talking about, it is deliberate. Now, if there's anything apart from that, you will find out that a lot of policies, look at the central bank policies you're talking about. While there may be nothing wrong with it in terms of strategy, in terms of timing, I mean, these are things that if they had come up 4, 5 years, 6 years ago, you would say there's somebody who's doing something. But obviously, the strategic response of this country shows clearly. I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. There are moles in high places in Nigeria. And what is happening to our people is that when terrorism is being used clinically, one of its objectives is to break the will of the nation. Now, if you look at the value of human worth all over Nigeria, it is as if somebody deliberately is fomenting trouble. And my appeal to the nation is this: we are Nigeria. We are a country designed by God to be the giant of Africa, and we will fulfill our role. Whatever this threat is, we will beat it. There are 2 things that have been working for us so far that has not allowed this nation to collapse. The amount of blunders in terms of the response of the government that have been committed regularly, and I speak as a person who has worked with the victims, people whose lives have been affected. I'm talking about widows, I'm talking about orphans, I'm talking about people who have been maimed, people who have had problems. I've been around this country, I've been in places where the bombs are still smoking. By the time I get there, for us to start doing our work of relief. Now, let me tell you something. We will beat this thing. But for us to beat it, the whole nation needs to understand something. This strategy that this government is putting together has not worked. It is not working. The other day I was on Channels TV, I pointed out that in high places there are known terrorists with global reputation who are serving in high places. How do we defend this kind of things? And who says that we don't understand that the process that is going on? Let me tell you something about Abuja. While I say that we cannot put our attention on travel advisories for foreign nations, does not mean that the intel that is coming that has allowed so many nations at the same time to come to a conclusion should be ignored. More so, if any one of us who works in the fields of missions and others put your ear to the ground, the charter is there. Abuja is a matter of time. Abuja is a matter of time if we don't change strategies. Okay. There are some things we need to do right away. First of all, as I'm talking to you right now, if in a matter of days, we don't deploy low-tech devices in Abuja, and we continue with the responses, the people I feel sorry for the most are the young boys in the army. People who have been sent out to defend a nation that is being disabled from within. We have the records are there for anybody to see. We don't have to look. As a matter of fact, let me say something to you clearly. When the template for the program that is destroying Nigeria, a globally recognized program, when the template was being developed between 1990 and 1996, now people say, oh, how do you know this? Look, go and look at the 9/11 official report, page 56 or so. You will see in about 4 pages, you'll see Nigeria mentioned. You will find out that a lot of the templates that is working here are things that were discussed even then, and that if we dig enough, we'll find out that even the names of the people involved is not hidden. Now, let me tell you something. In the early days in the 70s, when armed robbery first started, the government made an example of some people, and every Nigerian, the narrative shifted. Nobody really wanted to be an armed robber. Now, if you look at most of the people sponsoring terrorism and everything, all the information comes into Nigeria, the government sits on it, makes noises, makes promises. Like the other day, they said that one of the heaviest financiers was in Kaduna State, and the governor made that comment himself. I'm asking you till today, have you seen any financier that has been tried publicly, whose name has been made known?
It's very interesting, you know, Pastor Johnson, that these things are coming up, you know, thick and fast. But I don't know. Let me speak to Professor Abbas. You wanted to answer the question about discordance within the system earlier.
Yeah, Ayo, apologies for that. Nigeria just happened to me. You know, Nigeria happens to us at every stage. You know, internet. Anyway, I'm back now. Look, I just took what Wale just said there in terms of, I think he began by saying that he thought that the incoherence is deliberate. Well, it may be partially so, but I wouldn't even think it's necessarily deliberate. I think this is a government that from day one has been signposted by a lot of inconsistencies. And we can chart from 2015. We can have a long chart of inconsistencies in government policies. I think CBN is a perfect example of that. You know, if you look at what Mr. Emefiele, I don't know what it's called nowadays. If you chart what he has done in the last few years, you can see a lot of inconsistencies in the policies. But what actually is mind-boggling to me is that at that level of CBN governorship and the ministerialship of the country, you have that kind of discord. It might be symptomatic of something far more fundamental, dysfunctionality in that particular system itself. Certainly, Mr. President must be watching both of them, we're not talking about opposition parties here. We're talking about the same government. We're not talking about PDP saying this against this. We're talking about very high level officials. I think about 2 days ago, no, just last night, I think earlier in the day, on Friday, Paul Pelosi was attacked in the US, as you know, the husband of the Speaker of the US Congress, was attacked brutally in his house in California. And what is important was you had the whole country saying there should be a bipartisan condemnation of the level of violence in that country. And we've seen Republicans, sort of dance around and stuff like that, this and that. But you know what, they still come out and say, when we have this kind of level of inconsistency in the country, who calls anybody out? Nobody does. Who calls the government out? Nobody does. What party leadership should come out and say, look, we cannot tolerate this. We're talking about, let's not take this Naira issue. We're talking about a currency. It's a very, very sensitive issue. So you will assume that everybody will come out and say, no, we cannot have this level of discord in this particular government, or in any government for that matter. Let us know why this is taking place. And as I said, it might be symptomatic of what is going on. Now, let's look at this issue of security itself. Again, Wale said many things in terms of, inconsistent policy or lack of strategy. I think we have a strategy in Nigeria, only that the strategy is blatantly ineffective. And I agree with you to some extent in terms of, the kind of military we have. There is no way you can use old solutions to tackle new problems. We have new problems in terrorism today, cyber terrorism and so many others. There are new issues that developed in the last 10, 20, 30 years. You cannot use a military that is using a manual of 70 years old manual to respond to the same thing. You have to make long-term investment in security, in intelligence gathering. I'm not talking about just buying a few old, useless, helicopters from some third world or second world countries and buying a few Tornado, whatever you want to say. That doesn't solve. Look, that is a militarized solution. The solution to Nigeria's security has to go way, way beyond the military, point blank. Are we looking at the root causes? We talk about this as if they're just things we want to tick box. No, we need to understand that in a country in which we are approaching an unprecedented level of unemployment in the country, you're going to have problems. You're going to have serious, serious problems. So let us look at what are the foundational bases for the crisis that we face today. Number two, Nigeria's policy is extremely reactive. We wait, something happens, and we react to it. Look, the other day, about 3 weeks ago, you might be aware, just about 5 a.m. On Kara area, when you are approaching Baga, there was a blatant armed robbery there. And immediately, as typical of Nigeria, they brought in soldiers, they brought in police and everything. And I just laughed and I told my friends, give it 4 or 5 days, they will disappear. That is us. It's a problem, we just respond, then we forget it. And I like what Wale said there. There's a difference between response and reacting to a problem. I send troops. I put boots on Abuja. I'm not in Abuja today, but I'm sure that in Abuja now you see soldiers on the street. I can imagine you see a lot of police checkpoints and this and that and blah, 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 this and that. Give it 1 or 2 weeks. All this will disappear and we go back to. So if I were a terrorist who wants to really harm you, I know what your response is going to be. I will just wait you out. I'm not going to come out because I know you're going to put boots on the street. Only idiots function like that. You need to make long-term investment in intelligence gathering, in equipping your military. And by equipping, you're talking about modern-day equipment. You have to invest massively in technology. You're not talking about, AK-47, AK-49. That is not the kind of level we should be dealing with now. Spend more. Look, Ayo, I've said this several times on Channel TV. London is the CCTV capital of the world. Everybody knows. At a point in time, if you left your house in London at 9 a.m. and you went back at 5 p.m., you will be caught by CCTV 350 times per day in a single day. I'm talking about 10 years ago. I don't even want to imagine what the statistics are now. And that is why if there is bombing in London today, within a few minutes, they will profile, they know who causes it, who is responsible, because reaction is different. Reaction is what you do. Response is long-term. Response is something that continues. So you can still be responding to a threat for the next 3 years, 5 years after the threat, because it's a long chain that you are plotting. It's not reaction. Reaction is just like send it, but all Nigerians do mostly is just to react. We never respond. And that is what happens when everybody should be in prison is in government, and everybody is in government should be in prison. Nigeria is a perfect example of that.
All right, well, Prof, I don't know, but first, just to quickly point out that Wally Thompson is a musician. Our guest is Laddie Thompson. I'm sorry, it's just a... Okay, so let me go to Laddie Thompson now for this one. And both of you are going to speak to this as we close. Someone mentioned the issue of security education for Nigerians. Pastor Thompson, we know what government needs to do. Whether or not it is timeous enough, that's another thing altogether. But how about the people? Someone pointed out yesterday to us that the level of security education of Nigerians is very, very low. How do we begin the process of redressing that? Let the people be security educated and be able to take first aid action when it be.
Well, let me say that that is the simplest part of the problem, and I will tell you why. We have an existential threat from the global, the local face of a global threat on one hand. It is exploiting systemic flaws that have never been addressed, systemic flaws that Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa spoke about in 1960 on the 7th of October. Now, for the people, when you want to win this kind of war, you're going to galvanize the entire nation. Now, fortunately for us, those who designed Nigeria, in order to keep us failing without falling, designed Nigeria in such a way that the enculturation program that produces a Nigerian out of a baby is weaker than the enculturation program that produces an Igbo man, a Yoruba man, an Efik man, a Hausa man, and a Fulani man out of a baby. However, we need to turn that thing on its head and use it for advantage. Right now, we don't have the luxury of time. We don't have the luxury to go borrowing more money. And I'm going to say to you right now that practically every culture in Nigeria has a low-tech form of an internet that is not powered by bytes and digital energy. What I'm trying to point out to you is this. I have been discussing with some people in, I think, one of the bodies in Nigeria, the NIPR, yes, the NIPR. I was at their convention, and we spoke about the fact that these are communicators. These are the kind of bodies that you energize in a country. Do you know that if you design an app that people download on their phones, that app, designed on the skeletal structure of the enculturation programs, will produce in 2 weeks a stronger line of defense than anything the country has done since we started. First, let me tell you something. What we are seeing in Nigeria is just the advanced party of this hydra-headed monster. This is not their most sophisticated weapons coming in yet. What we are seeing that is giving us headache in Nigeria right now is just their advanced formations, which are not the deadliest at all. Okay? We can take these things out. Develop, look, an app, we've been trying to put something together for a while right now. Develop this app, go down to regional security level, engage the African advantage. Listen, in other parts of the world, it takes a nuclear family to bring up a child. One of the ancient advantages of Africa is that it takes an entire community to bring up a child. And while we are doing that, you find out there are certain bonds that are forged in practically every community.
Okay.
If we put that on a digital plate,
yeah,
you're going to find you have a stronger line of defense. You have a pool of information. The only challenge here now is this. Even if we go low tech, what guarantee do you have that when you make a report to those who are licensed to carry ammunition, they won't come back and devastate the country?
Solid question there. Solid question there. Professor Abbas, same question. How do you react to that? Because there are those who will be wondering, so security education is a challenge on its own.
Well, thank you, Ayo. I think that is a very important question. I seem to remember in days bygone that compulsory military training was part of our Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Compulsory military training was part of our system in Nigeria. I think at the NYC level, at a point in time, it was taken off. Number one, you need to educate the majority of Nigerians to be security awareness. Earlier on, I think Mr. Ladi mentioned something that, we need to have Nigerians need to be patriotic about their country. Look at the war going on in Ukraine. Whereas Russians are fleeing Russia not to be conscripted, Ukrainians overseas are flying back to Ukraine to go and fight and die for their country. You know what that is? The biggest investment you can make in people is in their own life. And when you invest in the people, they'll have a stake in your life. It's as simple as ABC. How many Nigerians today have a stake in Nigeria's life as a country? How many of us want to die for our country? So the kind of education we are looking for is been missing fundamentally from day one. And you cannot that education when you have a political leadership that does not even understand what being a citizen of a country truly actually means. Most Nigerians today are struggling for daily survival. So you need education. I'm not just limited to security, but if you say security education, are you talking about teach them, train people on how to handle arms, how to report security and this and that? No. All this must form an integral part of a whole citizenry education of the country. That's educating us, what does it mean to be a Nigerian?
Yeah.
When can I say I am a patriotic Nigerian? How can I be sure that if it comes to it, I want to take arm and fight and die for my country? It means my country must have invested in me to that level that I will be very proud to wear my country's flag. That is the kind of education you're talking about in the country. One second, Ayo. But if you're talking about a country that woke up one day and took history away from our education syllabus, what are we talking about?
Okay, they are very concerning issues. There is no doubt about it. But even though the security education that I was talking about is people even being able to identify what a security threat is, many may not even know. It's one of the things that we have seen. But however, I think you made a very, very valid sense in saying, look, we need to address these issues more concisely than we are already doing now. I have to thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of this conversation this morning. Professor Ademola Abbas is a professor of international law and global security, as well as a global security analyst. As we've also had Pastor Ladi Thompson, who is a security consultant. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time this morning, which we greatly value. All right, we'll take a short break and we will be back to talk about some heroes. Stay with us. So the Naira plunged to record lows against both the dollar, the world's biggest stable coin. 48 hours after the central bank announced some plans to replace higher denomination notes of our currency. Information has it that the Naira fell on the official market, where it touched a record 442.62 Naira to the dollar before regaining some lost ground. In the unauthorized parallel market, which you may call the black market, the Naira weakened to more than 780 to the dollar from 753 on Wednesday. The central bank announced on Wednesday that it plans to replace 200 Naira, 500 and 1,000 Naira notes by January 31. And flights to dollars as a risk to Nigeria's plan to replace high-value currency. It's all a mix. Let's get some sense of this and a number of other things this morning. Perhaps also in the same conundrum, the back and forth between the two officials of government in charge of finance or currency management or monitoring in the country. Joining us this morning are Tope Fashua, an economist and former presidential candidate who joins us from our studio in Abuja. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Dr. Fasha, as well as Johnson Chuku, who is MD of Cowrie Asset Management Company. He joins us virtually. Thank you also for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Aya, for having me. Good morning.
Let me begin with you. I have a tough question to ask Dr. Fasha, but let me begin with you, Dr. Chuku. So this is out. The information is out that this is what the central bank wants to do, plans to do, approved by the president. If they're going to print 3.3 trillion or so currency notes within now and December 15, maybe let's say they want to print just 2 trillion Naira notes because there is, the others are also there. The 100 Naira note is also there. The 50 Naira note is also there. If they're going to do that, they probably would have started by now, contracted it all out and gotten the works, instrument in the works and all of that. So what is your take on this? How significant do you see this being against all of the arguments that have been pushed out as the reason for it? Security features, something we should have been doing every 5 to 8 years. We've not done in 20 years or thereabout, and on like that. What's your take on that position?
The first thing I will recognize is that the central bank no longer require 2.3 trillion naira, or 3.2 trillion naira as currency in circulation. If what the central bank governor said is true, which is that about 2.7 trillion naira is outside the banking system. So effectively, the amount of money circulating that is being effectively used in terms of currency is just about 500 billion naira. But let's even extend the logic and say the amount being used is maybe in about 1 trillion naira. Because what the central bank said they want to achieve is to be able to bring back those currencies in circulation that have been warehoused in the homes of some individuals or in their vaults, and they want to bring them back to the banking system, which means those funds that have been warehoused or hoarded by some people are no longer effectively in circulation, which means the actual amount of currency in circulation we need for normal transactions is no longer actually effectively about 3.2 trillion naira. So the central bank doesn't need to print 3.2 trillion naira. What they may need to print about 1 trillion naira. But clearly, I agree with you, they must have started that printing, because it seems from all indication that this initiative was traded in secrecy. If the Minister of Finance had come out to say that she wasn't aware of that, and the information we are getting from the central bank said that the governor shared with the Fed president and president approved it, but it was intentionally withheld from the ministers. So that means some level of action has already been going on. And in terms of printing, they don't need to print the entire amount at once, because it will take quite some time to inject that whole amount into the system. It's when people make demands, from 15th of December, when you want to make a withdrawal, they give you the new currency. And if we have to abide by the cashless policy, that volume of liquidity or currency circulation will no longer easily get into the market.
Dr. Fashua, my question to you is around how this issue addresses inflation. Now, we all know that we're dealing with serious issues when it comes to inflation. And there are those who are aware, there are those who are wondering what all of that means. How does money that is in circulation, supposed to be circulating and making life easier for people, how is it that we still have the kind of issues that we have in terms of inflation on personal spendings of people, on the businesses, the micro and small businesses, on even big, businesses, in the line or at a time when we're supposed to be talking about a cashless economy?
Right. Thank you, Ayo. And you can see that the central bank has done quite a few things to make us cashless in Nigeria. All the initiatives are still running, limits on deposit, limits on withdrawal of cash. And then, of course, Nigeria has actually gone pretty far. in most of our villages, you see all those POS people making life a bit easier for people. But of course, there'll be resistance. Part of the, Dr. Johnson said, Dr. Chukwu, part of the idea, is that the central bank reserves the right to manage currencies, and they hadn't done this in a while. In fact, the people should be actually asking why they hadn't done what they needed to do, because in time, every currency can get compromised. So if you let it go for too long, those who are experts at forging currencies and counterfeiting and so on, they get smarter. And so the central bank has to, from time to time, or whoever is the money issuing authority has to, from time to time, change everything. You try and change as much as possible to make life more difficult for those guys. So it's not just about inflation. And I must say, since post-COVID, since I've been traveling, I realized that most countries have changed their currency. The UK has changed its currency. They're down to polymer. Dubai is changing its currency. They've changed 20 dirham, 50 dirhams, and so on. I was traveling through Ethiopia just a few days ago, and I had some beers, that's what they call their currency. And they told me that I couldn't spend the beer in the airport anymore because they've changed it a year ago. So this is going on everywhere, and I think the central bank is just doing its duty. Of course, the idea also, not only from the security counterfeiting perspective, but also from the inflation perspective. Of course, inflation is a monetary phenomenon, so the more money you have in circulation, the higher the inflation. So the central bank is thinking, okay, if we can limit the amount of money in circulation to the amount that actually is about productivity. Because when you see all of those slush money that's hanging around, those ones are usually for the crime market, corruption, and all of that. I mean, in this country, unfortunately, people get kidnapped quite often, and these guys, they take cash. And once they take the cash, they move direct to dollar. So that puts pressure on the Naira, consistently. And the Naira cash must also continue to float around so that they can get another set of money to pay and then take again to buy dollar and so on, apart from, let's say, corrupt civil servants and co. I mean, we've seen instances in this country where people bury money in soakaways and overhead tanks. Sometimes the money goes to waste. There's instances where people leave money and then it gums together because they didn't access it, they didn't put air conditioning in where those monies are. So anyhow, the central bank figured that this is a good time for them to rein in some of those scenarios and to know, so that they can also do better planning if you know the exact or near exact amount of money in circulation. I must also tell you now that currency technology has also improved. Of course, we're just buyers here, but the new currencies I see floating around in the world, and of course, the world is using less and less of cash now, but the currencies are much, much difficult to forge. And I think this is what central bank is looking at. In fact, we should be asking them why they hadn't done this, a lot earlier. And I will tell you the history of currencies, of currency management in Nigeria as we go along.
Okay. Perhaps before we go off of it, I'll come to you, Dr. Chukwu, about the inflation part of it, which is what I asked Dr. Fashua the other time as well. Dr. Chukwu, I'm still going to insist on that question, even though Dr. Fashua has tried to address it from his own perspective. How come we still have the inflation level we have with a cashless economy and so much liquidity in the flow, as Dr. Fashua has also explained?
A mister, not a doctor. So I'm still Mr. Chukwu. Okay, back to your question. The issue about inflation is inflation defines simply that when so much money is pursuing few goods, when there is liquidity that is not backed by productivity, which I think Chukwu had mentioned, when you have people being paid and there is no productive activity which they actually effected, they are not being paid for services rendered or product delivered, then that is excess. That becomes what we call liquidity suffix. So it becomes that those people can spend that money anyhow and they can buy goods at any price. So you have pressure from those who have free liquidity, free cash. And when you have free cash and you're not producing anything, it simply means you've been rewarded. You collected a rent, economic rent. And likely you bid up the price of goods and services because there was no additional increase in price of, volume of goods and services within that economy. That's part of where they call a liquidity pressure. So, but beyond the fact that there's a lot of liquidity, currency outside the banking system, the liquidity pressure we're having today is also partly driven by the fact that there's a lot of ways and means funded by the central bank. And we must not, because if you look at the amount of ways and means funded by the central bank, it is multiple of the amount of money that we're saying is outside, currency outside the banking system. So the pressure we're having is not largely, cannot be sufficiently attributed to the currency outside banking system. It is more of the central bank funding of the federal government budget by ways and means. So we must separate those two. But that does not take away the fact that, look, if you eliminate payment and rewards of financial payment that are not backed by economic activities, you reduce the incentive for people to bid up prices of goods and services even beyond their intrinsic worth. So that, for me, is the contributory factor as it relates to the amount of the pressure we're having on inflation occasioned by monies going to the hands of people who didn't work for it. Okay. Kidnappers, for instance, if a kidnapper collects 10 million for kidnapping you, the person can go and buy a handset for 1 million naira because he thinks it's a status quo, even if the handset is going for maybe 500,000 naira. So that's part of the pressure we're going to eliminate. But talking more of what the central bank wants to do, I think there's one area we must not fail to recognize, and that is the cost of this printing of notes, or the need, back to the inflation pressure you mentioned, the need for central bank to take measures to rein on inflation as a result from this. It
goes back to the question. Yes, Mr. Choku, it goes back to the question that I want that I actually asked around, the cashless economy. Would you say then that if the cashless policy has been as effective as it should be, would we still have the kind of liquidity problem that we have on our hands? Because I would assume that if paying with physical cash is in exchange for services rendered, I assume also a simple transfer, electronic transfer of money would have done the same. So if the cashless policy has been as effective as it ought to be, do you think we would have this kind of challenge on our hands?
Yes and no. And that's why that's the contradiction when you say yes and no. I'll explain that. In the first place, the 2.7 trillion naira outside the banking system was not withdrawn in a day. If you understand the way politicians work, a politician who was preparing all this while to run for presidency or governorship would have started the process of withdrawing cash, particularly if the cash was not made from legitimate income source. Maybe the person is being paid by a governor he installed, or the person is a governor and is preparing to run a second time. They would have started stacking up cash from maybe 4 years ago. So even if they are withdrawing from company account where they have a limit to withdraw 3 million in a day, and these people have a lot of companies that they have created, shell companies. So if they are withdrawing 3 million from 10 companies a day, they are withdrawing 30 million, and they are stacking up this. So they will be circumventing the cashless policy over a period of time. And that's where I was going to. And that is that the CBN rule as it relates to this change of currency, it has created a loophole. And that is where the pressure is coming from FX. The loophole is that the central bank said the bank will suspend charges for the cashless policy. They will not suspend charges for lodgements. And if you suspend charges for lodgement, you know what happens? The people who are holding Naira cash will go to somebody who is selling FX and then pay the person to buy FX at any price. Knowing the person will accept that Naira because he knows he won't pay any charge by going to lodge that money in the bank. So in effect, the central bank has created a window for people to sort back these funds that they have kept illegally or into the banking system without any cost to them. And because they are politically exposed people, they will not go to the banks to lodge money. So what they are doing is buying FX. But if the central bank has said that for every lot that this you're going to abide, you're going to enforce stringently the cashless policy. What would have happened is that if you go to a person who sells dollar and you want to buy $100,000, which will require you to pay him about 80 million naira or 78 million naira, the person knows he can't take that money to the bank because they will charge him 3 naira per 100,000.
It goes back
3 million naira.
It goes
and
back
that
to the same question.
That he would request for a transfer.
Yes, sir.
That would have been able to get those who have given this money away.
It goes
and
back to the same
question.
It goes back to the same question of the policy itself. Dr. Fasha, you spoke to, the limits and all those parameters put in place by the federal government, the Central Bank of Nigeria, to ensure that the policy works. But then here is one example of, call it a backdoor, as, Mr. Chukwu has also mentioned it, on the same cashless policy. So I ask the same question again. If the policy has been as effective as it ought to be, would we have the kind of liquidity challenge that we're trying to solve now?
Well, I think that the cashless policy has been largely successful. But remember, you have to look at the structure of the economy and look at the players in the economy. We still run a largely informal economy. That's there because a lot of our people are poor, people are in the villages, people are in the market, so you can't actually totally wipe out cash. In fact, it hasn't been done in any country in the world, even though post-COVID, many countries are going almost totally cashless. You won't see cash anywhere. You won't see 1,000 pounds on the street. You won't see 500. You won't even see. You would hardly see 200 pounds in the streets of London as we speak. But even at that, they still cannot be totally cashless. You have to always leave that option in case the electronic option. So the truth is that, we have also, if you look at Nigeria, corruption is still a major factor. Nobody pays corruption money by electronic transfer. And so the average Nigerian should be very happy that this policy is coming up because it further tightens the scenario. It further tightens the system. Whereas you're not going to get a 100% system whereby everything is done right. But it further tightens it up. So, I talked about kidnappers earlier on, bandits, all sorts of players in the economy, and those guys know that they can always get Naira at any volume and all of that. Anyhow, the point now is this. This policy is a very good one because it achieves a lot of things. So now we can talk about the fact that people are moving into the dollar, all right? But the point is also that there's data being got from Bureau de Change and people who buy dollar and sell dollar. They are going to have to do reporting. At some point, they will also have to explain themselves. If all of a sudden they are walking into the bank or transferring billions every day, they have. And you can see that many of the scandals around. You could see that the hands of BDCs are all over the place. A lot of them too are in trouble already. So now the thing is that if you don't have money stashed in your sock away or in your overhead tank, you have absolutely no problem. If you're doing legitimate business, you have no problem. Let your money be in the bank. And if the money goes into the bank, then the banks are going to have some good liquidity for them to further do lending and keep the economy going. So we're going to probably see the momentary spike in dollar to Naira rates in the black market. Eventually, if this policy is done right, we would even stop monitoring the black market. There's stuff that we'll do, this is about the Naira, there's stuff that the central bank can do with the dollar as well, that this idea whereby black market becomes the main rate that we're quoting on the street. It's called black market for a reason. It's a dark market. It's an underground market. People should be a bit, not only ashamed, they should be afraid of saying that they've gone to the black market. Newspapers should not be giving us reports on the black market. Neither should TV stations be telling us reports about the black market. There's black market everywhere in the world. There's the underground market and the underworld market everywhere in the world, including the United States and everywhere. But you'd never have mainstream media reporting on those. So that's where we're heading to. So this is just one step. And I think that the central bank has done well in managing the information up to now. And people have about maybe 90 days to do the right thing and all of that. And we already have enough infrastructure as a result of the financial innovation, e-banking, different kind of banking licenses, payment service bank, all of those things now, already all over Nigeria. And I must quickly say this. Because that is all over Nigeria, people cannot say that the villagers have been disenfranchised, the villagers have money, they cannot take it to the bank and so on. The villagers can take money to POS, POS can change money for them and all of that, no matter where they are in this country. And of course, banks are still looking for money. So it's just all well and good. And I must let you know that the central bank is only doing its duty. The history of currency management in Nigeria. In 1959, we had the Nigerian pound under the Federation of Nigeria. In 1963, that currency was changed to a currency of Nigerian pound, which is under the Federal Republic of Nigeria because it became a republic. And in 1968, it was changed again during the Civil War, okay, because there was some abuse of currency. They changed the currency. In 1973, again, they changed the currency to the Naira, okay? So from the pound, we moved to the Naira. In 1977, they created the 20 Naira Muritala, and then they introduced also in 1978 1 Naira, 5 Naira, and 10 Naira notes and changed the color. Then Buhari came in 1984 and changed all the currency. All right, and that continued like that in 1984. By 1991, we introduced the 50 Naira, and we decided to coin the 1 Naira, and the 50 kobo were coined in 1991. All right, so by 1999, we introduced the 100 Naira. 2000, we introduced the 200 Naira. 2005, we introduced the 1,000 Naira, okay? And 2002, we introduced the 500 Naira, and so on. So, but since 2005, we haven't done anything significant on the currency, meaning that anybody can run wild. Only in 2014, they did a commemorative 100 Naira and so on, just to mark when Nigeria turned 100 years since 1914. So there's no country that should not. The central bank should be allowed to do its work. In no country that doesn't change its currency from time to time. And it's not a subject for so much speculation. All of the countries that I mentioned earlier changed their currency. We didn't hear social media going. But I think, you know, because the social media now, everybody has a voice. So everybody becomes a heckler. And even the central bank cannot do its work that it should. So the idea of changing currency is from a security perspective, counterfeiting perspective, inflation management perspective, and so on and so forth. And one policy can have several effects. And this is even the best instrument against crime in this country, kidnapping and all of that, is actually through finance. Follow the money. And how best can you follow the money than doing something like this, ensuring you bring back money into the central bank control, you can plan your monetary policy better, and the NFIU, EFCC, all of those guys can go after those transactions. And I tell you what, we can actually get out of our problem. Nigerians should be sure that we really want to get our problem solved, not just to have a government that we can complain against all the time.
There's also the issue of the timeliness of it, or the timing of the policy, Dr. Fashua. There are those who have pointed to the fact that, hey, this is happening a few weeks to the elections, and that it will take active effect by the end of the first month of the year, just about 2 weeks to the general elections. What's your reaction to that?
Absolutely. Number one, for me, I have absolutely no problem about that. You know, I mean, I've even heard some people say, oh, it's in favor of the ruling party against the... I'm wondering whether the opposition, they have more cash than the ruling party. I thought the opposition should be happy because, you know, I thought that the ruling party should have more cash, you know, to give. And are we also legitimizing cash for vote or whatever? Absolutely nothing to do with an election as far as I'm concerned. And there will never be a good time to do this policy. It's a good policy. They ought to have done it. Like they say, you know, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. You know, Nigeria has always managed currency. Soludo did quite a bit of currency management in 2005. I think that was when 1,000 note was. And then he printed some coins and tried to bring some coins back into circulation. They did a bit of things, and we supported to see how it would be. Unfortunately, those coins, they disappeared as well. You know, so what are we talking about? We also have the e-Naira, which we can also use this opportunity to pilot the e-Naira. And do the right thing. But I think the bottom line is this. I would support this policy on the basis that it goes after illegal transactions. And okay, we need to reduce the impact of illegal transaction, even in terms of determining the value of the Naira. If kidnappers are the ones taking Naira to the market to buy dollar en masse, in billions, and therefore, how can we then say that we should float the Naira? When you float the Naira, but the people who are driving the market are illegal people, corrupt politicians, corrupt civil servants, and so on, taking money into the market to buy dollar, then we're in trouble. So I, for one thing, that's absolutely, it doesn't have much to do with the election. Okay. It's going to be a gradual, the January 31 is just the deadline to say, if you haven't taken your money by then, you are likely going to lose that money, because after that, it's just like The pound, the 50 pound and the 20 pound, they had September 30th was the deadline. And so if you have any 50 pound or 20 pound old money, or, you know, in your whatever, you can't change it anymore. You can't. That's the thing, except by maybe special arrangement. I don't know, but they have said you can't change it. I went to UK, I had some old £1 coin some 6 months ago. And by the time I thought that they had changed it and they refused to collect the money from me, the £1 coin. So even a coin can be, so I don't think it has anything to do with election. I think people, most people, and especially those poor people we talk about, those people in the market in the villages, they are legitimate people. Their little money they have is legitimately hard, whether by trading or by agriculture. Those ones don't have a problem. We should not use them as an excuse to try and truncate a good policy. Those ones have no problem to take their money to the bank. If you give them 1 month, they will do it if they have to do it.
Okay.
You know, it's just to exchange it, you know. So I think that we shouldn't truncate such a good policy.
Well, I don't think this is an effort to truncate. I think it's just an effort to help people understand better what the whole policy is about, because there are those who are still wondering, is this what we should be talking about now? So, well, back to you, Mr. Chukwu. The timing of the policy is something a number of people have complained about, being so close to general elections. What exactly is the game plan here and all of that? Do you have any concerns about that as well?
Well, I don't have concerns. I rather support the idea that the terminal date for the use of the old currency is 31st of March, 31st of January 2023. One of the things that Central Bank Governor said is that among the reasons for the change of the currency is that they want to forestall or frustrate criminal activities. Criminal activities include kidnapping. I mean, those who got money, process of kidnapping, those who are involved in drugs, and other criminal activities, including, if I may add, vote buying. We know that it has become a trend, a consistent trend within our political space, that on election day, people go with stacks of Naira notes and buy votes. And like I said, if you're talking about 2.7 trillion Naira outside the banking system in circulation, then clearly those monies are not kept by the peasants. They are not kept by ordinary traders, because ordinary traders, most traders you know that are involved in commercial, they are doing significant part of their transactions through electronic payment systems. I mean, I have a trading business, and I can tell you that business, 99.9% of our proceeds are gotten through the electronic payment system. So the average trader does not need to stack up cash in his house. The people who obviously have stacked up this cash in their homes are the politicians in preparation to buy votes. So if the policy has been designed to frustrate that criminal acts or criminal activities, for me, it's something who ought to be applauded. And I think that by defining that January 31st deadline, the central bank must have taken into cognizance that this measure will frustrate the need or the availability of currencies for vote buying, and therefore will obviously give us some level of reasonably clean and distant election in 2023. So for me, I think that may have been taken into cognizance in defining the 31st of January, which, like I said, for me, it's something we should need to applaud. And because if we set out to say, look, we want to change our currency to frustrate criminal activities, vote buying is one of those criminal activities that are frustrating the development of the country.
Well, Dr. Fashua, I'll come back to you on this one. So we had a conversation in the course of the week, and one of our guests said something that many people may not be aware of, and I'm pretty sure that both of you gentlemen are aware of this. The person said, whether we like it or not, the Naira is a major trading currency in West Africa. Consequently, any action that Nigeria takes about her currency is going to have that domino effect on the currencies of a good number of other economies in the West African sub-region. What's your take on that?
Well, it is true that Naira is significant. You know, you can still go to Ghana, for example, today, and at the airport, they'll take your Naira. And I think that's very remarkable, even in Cameroon, in Benin Republic, in parts of Niger, and so on. You know, so around that region, up to Côte d'Ivoire, yeah. So, but I don't see just mere exchange of currency. Everybody is aware. So the news goes fast. And remember that we live in this digital age, this GSM age, and information is quicker now. So it's not 1984. When they changed currency, and so on. It was much more difficult to get news around. So things are a lot quicker to be done these days, So that's it. I don't see absolutely any problem with that. However, I don't also see it affecting trade per se. Okay, I don't see it affecting trade because, of course, we're moving into the AFCFTA now. African free trade. Apart from the normal trade that our people have done, Nigeria hasn't actually keyed in majorly into AFCFTA. I saw the first deal that was done on AFCFTA, I think between Ghana and Kenya or Rwanda and Kenya. And that was the first deal that they used to tee off. But Nigeria is not very active. We're still a bit afraid that, if we go in there, are we going to lose something? Are we going to lose this or the other? But I mean, whereas the Naira is still significant in that region, a better Naira, a better managed Naira, which eventually this policy is also targeting a stronger and more stable Naira as we go along. I may not want to go into that projection now or into that speculation now, but I can tell you there's a lot of, in fact, the central bank governor did not say everything they were going to do. He also said that, look, going forward, they may not be printing as much money as they have printed. Let us also, like Mr. Johnson has said, in a trading business, 99% of their trade gets done electronically. People can pay money by USSD. They can pay money by getting on their phone and app and all of that. They can pay money by their card. What else do we want? So the options are there for those who are legit. I think also this is kind of, going to shape our minds in a way. Because eventually, we also have to understand this idea of, that we're always keeping money in different places, hoarding money, trying to do big man and all of that stuff. All we need to survive is actually very little. And I must say, before I go, that there's something called seigniorage in currency management, and that's an advantage. If the federal government prints 1 Naira, okay, and it costs 5 Naira to print a single paper, which I know it doesn't, but let's say it costs 5 Naira, or let's say it costs 10 Naira to print a single paper money of 1,000 Naira, and the money is injected into the system, the gain of 995 Naira or 990 Naira, as the case may be, is called seigniorage, and the gain belongs to the Central Bank of Nigeria or the federal government of Nigeria, as the case may be. So that seigniorage is the gain that comes from printing currency and pushing it into circulation. Okay. So whereas the cost that the central government central bank will bear in this instance is the cost of taking dirty money or old money out of circulation, managing that process and all of that. But there's gain in terms of the seigniorage of printing new currencies and pushing it out. I don't now know how much currency they are going to push out, but they've told us that they are going to use this process to also drive more electronic transactions and reduce the cash-based transaction, which the cash-based, people doing drugs, people doing kidnapping and prostitution, all sorts of things, that is the cash. And we can't allow those guys to keep running the economy.
All right. Well, Mr. Johnson, you said something earlier, and I'd like you to speak to it in the light of currency management, which Dr. Fashaw has spoken to quite a few times. You talked about the ways and means process that the CBN had used to intervene with the federal government a number of times. In terms of our currency management, what should we be doing differently going forward in a way that will help the economy stabilize?
I think the first thing we have to look at is that we need to call down our federal government deficits, particularly that portion of the deficit that is funded by ways and means. When you have a huge deficit like we're going to have in 2023, where the federal government is budgeting about 10.9 trillion naira deficits, and we know that even the 9.7 trillion naira budgetary revenue may not be achieved, so the deficit may actually be more than 10.9 trillion naira. And a significant portion of that may be funded by ways and means. It makes currency management difficult. Because once, like I said, if you are injecting liquidity into the economy where it's not backed by productivity, you're going to continue to see a deterioration in your currency because you will see a lot of local currency pursuing few available foreign currency that is based on productive activities. And you certainly have to continue to witness a pressure on your exchange rate. We need to address that. I think that's the core of the currency management challenge the central bank has been going through because the liquidity, if you look at what's happening in the banking system, the central bank has been using cash reserve ratio to suck up liquidity in the economy, in the banking system. But the liquidity keep flowing back from ways and means funding, because if you give money to central bank, I mean the federal government by ways and means, or if you lend to the federal government will use it to pay contractors, pay wages and salaries, pay all sorts of expenses that is not backed by any productive activity. And what you witness is that you see liquidity coming back to the banking system. So that's the core of the pressure we're having today. The other pressure we're having is that the central bank must, yes, we are not dealing with currencies that are not backed by reserve, or currencies not backed by dollar, but the central bank should minimize the gap between the available currency and the dollar reserve we have. If we can index the volume of currency in circulation to the value of our foreign reserve, you are going to be able to maintain some level of stability in the exchange rate. And we shouldn't forget the primary purpose of the central bank is to maintain price stability. And those price stability in terms of inflation rate, exchange rate, and price of money, which is interest rate. So if the central bank can be able to limit, now that it has the opportunity to redesign the Naira, it must make sure that the currency that we printed will be indexed to the reserve we have, so that we will manage the current pressures we're having on our exchange rate.
Dr. Fashua, you talked about currency management earlier, but I'd like you to speak to what we should be doing better going forward so the economy can be stable or progressively stable.
Well, let me say this way. There's what is called shock therapy, okay? If you look at, when we talk about stability, it brings up the issue of Naira to dollar exchange rate and all of that. But I think that we may have to look at some shock therapy. The economy has swayed too much to illegal transactions and all sorts of funny things going on, which we cannot afford to continue that way. So you ask me, I say, look, why must every Dixon and Harry have a dumb account in Nigeria? Why do school teachers, vulcanizers, area boys, everybody has a dumb account in this country? And what to call a dumb account? You have a foreign currency account. That means that at every point in time, you can move against your own currency and speculate against your own currency. I think that if the central bank wants to do the right thing, the next thing is to make a rule and a law. And the truth is this, it is not those small people I mentioned that are most affected. It's not even their business. You know, the point is that the people who are, the big guys in society are the ones that speculate the most. So whereas a small person can keep $200 in his dumb account because he heard that the Naira will continue to fall. However, it is by taking that action that the Naira falls because you have speculated against the Naira. And I keep talking about the self-fulfilling prophecy, which is the second stage, what they call the second generation currency crisis. When people say that their currency will fall, by saying it and being rife about it, people will move against the currency. And you may not be able to blame the people. But the ease at which people move against their currency in this country is too much. It should not be that easy. If you were a financial markets person, for example, I can understand if you're taking such a position. If you're an American, it doesn't come up that you will go and keep a pound account. Why do you need a pound account? Not to talk about a Naira account. You don't even need an euro account. If you are traveling to Europe, you just go. You know, with your card, you can do whatever it is you want to do. That's where we need to head to. So even things like BTA, PTA, I would expect that the central bank can do a lot of things. It's carrot and stick. You can increase the amount of BTA, PTA that those who want to travel can get, maybe up to $10,000. If you want to travel, you can get up to that amount. But give us in a card. I traveled about 6 months ago. GT gave me most of the $4,000 in a card. They only gave $500 in cash. But I traveled another 3 months later, and I got full cash. It is that full cash that puts everybody under pressure. If you were traveling and you know that you just want to spend money on your hotel and all of that, they can put money in a card for you. And so there's opportunity now for central banks to also incentivize the Naira and incentivize the people by increasing some of those limits. But the black market must actually be outlawed and be properly black so that anybody going there knows that you're doing an illegal transaction and whatever you see is what you get. Number one. Number two, personal dumb accounts are mostly unnecessary. Only companies that are doing international trade transactions or financial markets companies should be able to hold a dumb account because they have a reason to. If you're an exporter and you have export proceeds coming in, you can have dumb accounts.
Okay.
If you're an importer and you need to pay your customers once in a while, you can have a dumb account as a company. But if every Dixon and Harry can speculate against their own currency in a country that's meant to be developing, you will never get it out of, all sorts of crises that we are always wading through crises in Nigeria. So there are so many options open to the central bank. However, like it is said, follow the money. Finance is a potent weapon, even against some of the crimes that we see in society, even against kidnapping and all of that.
Okay.
Finance, follow the money, and you can tackle most of these people, using Nigeria as a playground for all sorts of things.
Thank you, Dr. Fasha. There are those who would argue, however, that, look, if I want my mental state to be stable, I want to be sure that the value of money I have is still as it is. But that's a conversation for another time altogether. Dr. Tokwe Fasha is an economist, as well as Mr. Johnson Chukwu, who is MD, Cowrie Asset Management Company, and definitely an economist as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of our conversation this morning. We're back after now. Let's talk about mental health. To inspire heroism in world children, Indomie instant noodles under the parent company Dufil Prima Foods PLC instituted a corporate social responsibility. I mentioned something like that earlier. That seeks to identify and reward the positive effects of children in society. Now, here with us today are Joshua Agbola, who is the winner of the 2021 Intellectual Bravery category, as well as Princess Esson, who won a Physical Bravery category in 2012. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being a part of our program this morning.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, they say ladies first, so you wait. How are you today?
Fine, sir.
So let me begin. How old are you?
I'm 18.
And you? How old are you?
I'm 13 years old.
13, wow. What happened, that on the fateful day that could have won you this award?
I saved my brother from a burning building. We were both in the fire. It was my older brother, and I used my elbow to break the glass windows, and I trimmed
Your what?
down. I used my elbow to break the glass windows because it was an upstairs apartment.
You were how old at that time?
I was 8 years old.
8 years old?
Yes.
You committed burglary. Sorry, you broke the window of a... Go ahead.
I used my elbow to break the window, and I grabbed my brother, who was older than me. He was 11 at that time, but he was a bit smaller than me. So I trimmed downstairs because I saw my parents downstairs and some neighbors. So they caught him, and then I followed suit.
I wish that was recorded so I can learn some bravery moves like that. Wow. And how does that feel to have saved? Did you even think that you were doing anything heroic?
No. I didn't think I was. I just thought I was doing what I was. Well, I was moved to do it. Like, he's my brother. I can't leave him there. And he was blinded by the smoke from fire, so he could not see, but I could see. So.
You were in the same fire?
Yes, I was in the same fire.
I don't know. If you could go back in time, what would you have done differently?
Nothing. I would have still saved my brother.
You must really love him.
Very much.
Okay. He used to give you biscuits and all those things at the time. Don't answer that question. Don't answer that one. Joshua,
Yeah.
you're 13, you say?
Yes, sir.
So, what are your own hobbies and skills?
My hobbies, I love programming. I love to play football, but I'm not good at it. But I'm still learning. I also love to draw a lot. Even this night I was drawing, learning how to draw characters. So I love to draw, as my younger brother too, but I love to draw a lot. I love art. I love digital art. I love all this AI creator that's coming out now, like DALL-E 2, that's creating art. AI is creating their own art. So I love to see new inspirations. I love concept arts and like 3D art. So I love art. I love animation.
Okay, very interesting. So you have invented some technology products?
Yes, sir.
Such as?
Kaguka, the one that won me the award.
What is that?
So it's an educational app that was made for the blind.
Oh.
It was inspired by when my parents took me to Bethesda School of the Blind, because they were donating typewriters. So I followed them just to see I took my own experience, and it was very membrane to see how they actually did the exam, because they had to narrate to them and they had to type it, and it was not efficient because what if somebody made a mistake while they were typing on the keyboard? So I always had an idea book in which I wrote my ideas, but I had lots of ideas, like the one that is an helicopter to a car and the car to an helicopter. So the helicopter turns into a car, and when you want to fly, the car flies. And when I learned how to code and to work with voice assistant, it was more like a voice assistant. When I learned how to code, I integrated it with this application. That's how Kaguka was brought up.
So let me backtrack to that. Helicopter to car, car to helicopter. Did mommy and daddy show you their Spy Who Loved Me movie back in time? Because they had a car that was a submarine and then back into a car in that movie.
I didn't watch that movie big at that time, even though I have watched some clips of the movie. I'm still looking for ways to get the full movie, but I've watched some clips of the movie. But at that time, I didn't know. I was just trying to create some inventions, like even the one that burst on water. That was a long time ago, like 4 to 5 to 6 years ago.
4 to 5 to 6
I
years
won't feel
ago.
like some of the things I created, they stole the ideas from me. But if you don't do it, it's not, because there are like a million people that have the same idea as you have. So when you have an idea, implement it fast, because you don't know whether there's another person who has the capability to launch the idea.
I have a code for that. You're gonna have to talk to me later. But so you built this educational app for the blind. Did you have an encounter with the blind students? You didn't?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay.
That's one of the things that Indomie helped me to do. So when I won the award, they took it to a blind school to check out the app and see what more can be improved on Kaguka. That's why I'm working on Kaguka version 2. Watch out next year, because I want it to be more accessible and more, to have more functionality for the blind students. That's why Indomie really helped me by taking me to the blind to see how it works with the market. Even though it's for blind students, but also normal students can use it. But it was specified for the blind students. So I had to test it out to see how it worked with them, how they liked it, what their advice for the app was, what they wanted in the app, and all that stuff.
Is it online? Can we, if you Google it now, will we find it?
It's Kaguka version 1, but according to
it's okay. Okay. What is it? Can you spell it?
Kaguka version 1. It's currently not really. This version 2 is not up yet because we're still working on it.
It's okay. Let's see the one.
The
There are
version
those
1.
who are even. Is it? Can we see it anywhere online? Is there a?
Yes, but that's the old version.
It's okay. We
Very
know.
old
We know how inventors feel. You just want the new one to be out. Yeah, we know. Chill, bro. We're on your side. So it's Karuka?
No. You won't find it on karuka.com, because karuka.com is where the original version 2 is.
Okay.
And we're still working on it.
Okay, so the website is not up yet.
Yes, it's not up yet.
But that's the spelling, right?
Yes, Kagukar.
Kagukar. Kagukar.
But if you want to see where it started from, where the first one that it took me time for me to build myself when I started it, which has some bugs, but if you want to just check out where it started from, you can go to kaguka.netlify.app. Kaguka.netlify, because I didn't have money
Just
for
spell it out. My brain is not working as fast as yours right now. Okay, so it's Kagukar
dot netlify
net
li
NET
LIFY
.app.
Yes, so that should be up, so you can check it out to see how it has evolved over time. By next year, it should be up, and But before the end of next year, I should have finished revision 2 and I should have started
I think we
testing
have
it.
another Mark Zuckerberg on our hands right now, but let me come back to you for a moment, Princess. So, how did it get to you, the point of you finding out that, okay, you have won the Indomie Heroes Award?
I was in the hospital at that time where I saw some people coming to take pictures, interviews. Then after I was like, because at first I didn't know that I'd won any award. I didn't even know the award came with money. Even when I heard I won the award, I was like, okay, that's nice. For doing what? Like, I did what anybody else would have done at that particular time. So when I found out I won the award, I was very happy. And it was just an amazing feeling, knowing that you can be rewarded for doing something that
comes naturally.
Yes.
Okay, and generally, how does it make you feel? How does your brother feel about the fact that you won an award for saving him?
I feel very happy. He felt very happy. Like,
he didn't feel bad that it was his younger sister that saved him.
Not at all. He was very grateful that I even saved him. Like, he was. And he's my closest brother, so we're like 5 and 6.
Okay. Yeah. I wish he was here with you now to see you grin. So, what's your message to, maybe let's begin with other people, other young people like you. What would be your message to them, whether or not they win awards?
My message for young people will still be the same. I always say it, like, I love books a lot. I read lots of books. I make sure I read a new book every month. So, like, I always read books because my pastor told me once, he said that the only way that you can, like, the only thing that would have improved in your future is the people you meet and the books that you read. Of course, you can't really affect the people that you meet because you can meet people everywhere, but you can affect the books that you read. If you read good books, your future will definitely be bright.
Interesting. Okay. So, and your message to the organizers would be?
Thank you so much for this initiative. Like, thank you so much. We can't say thank you enough.
Okay. So, dear inventor, how did you find out that you won the award, the Indomie Awards?
So actually, my parents they helped me to submit my response. So that was around the time I just finished developing the app, and I wanted to push it out to the world so they could see that, okay, I've come up with this thing. Let me show the world that I actually built this, and I want people to know about, to be conversant with the app, but to know about the app. So I submitted my response to Indomie. And that's one thing that Indomie helped me with. They increased the amount of people who know this app, and they gave it the app visibility. So when I was told that I won the award by my mom, and I was like, there's no way. I went to go and check the website, like, because I heard that there were a lot of people were submitting responses. I'm like, how? Because you know what? Me, because there are a lot of people that are better than me at coding. I might be good, but there's so many kids that they don't they are not had the opportunity to show their talents. That's why a popular quote my dad told me is that talent is distributed, but opportunity isn't. And I like to say that quote because it's really a quote that my daddy keeps telling me that if you have an opportunity, take that opportunity very well. So that's what my parents told me. And I hadn't found it hard to believe that I actually went. Until I was now called by Indomie and they told me that, sure, you were selected for intellectual bravery. I was like, and the same thing, I didn't even know there was even a reward. But the fact that I even won out of thousands of entries was even the one that what made me even more happy because that means I actually have something that's actually unique and special. It pushed me. And that's why I love what Indomie does. At that time, I was doing stuff for my. Around that point, I was filming like videos. So around that period, I was trying to post videos on my YouTube channel. Please check it out and subscribe because I'm trying to get 5,000.
What's the YouTube?
Josh for Tech.
Josh for Tech.
Yes.
The 4 is FOR or the number?
FOR.
Josh for Tech. And just to be clear, the tech is TECH.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So,
okay, all right. So how has that impacted your life and, by extension, your family?
So, first, it gave me visibility, as I talked about. He's pushed my app around. People were talking about it, which actually gave me encouragement to keep on building the app. It actually pushed me to work on Kaguga version 2. Because when they took me to the blind schools, I had to think, okay, because they're telling me how the issues that they had with the app and what they wanted it to be like. So I have to keep to think, okay, how can I add this? How can I add that? So it pushed me to start working on version 2. Also, it also helped me. It gave me encouragement to keep on teaching tech on my YouTube channel and keep teaching tech the way I teach kids, because my school also teach kids programming and all that stuff. So it also encouraged me to keep on teaching tech and spread the good news of tech.
So has it changed how has it changed your life? I mean, I know how it has affected you.
Yeah, so
but has it changed your life in any way, and how?
I've met new people, a lot of new people. I've met people from in high places. As we went for the media one, I've met people I won't even think I will meet, because I actually met, I don't know, it was one of the top officials in Tufil, and it was amazing to meet. I know, as you said, that the people you meet and the books you read. So it helped me to even to get connections with a lot of people. And I'm like, wow, I'm talking to some people that I never imagined that I would talk to in a few years. So if I want to talk about the main benefit and how it has changed me, it's the connections.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. And so, well, I asked her about how, the message to other people. So what would be your message on how to encourage other kids like you who want to learn?
So she has said a lot, but my own word is that just keep on working on whatever talent you have, and that parents should support their kids' talent and try to push it out. And because some people, they need shoulders of giants to be able to stand on. Some people you might think, this is Joshua, he knows all this programming. Meanwhile, there are kids out there that we see them now, they are hot, and nobody has discovered them and nobody has seen them. That parents continue to push kids' talent. Government should continue to push kids' talent. And I love what Indomie is doing, because they are discovering kids' talent. Apart from submitting, they're also going to the rural areas to check, okay, what talent do these kids have? And I love a lot about Indomie. They're not just saying it just to the internet. There are more people in this world that talent needs to be shown and to be developed.
Okay.
So
Okay, so Princess, just before we escape or rather I allow you to escape from the studio, you are a lady, and there are many people out there who would probably feel, I don't think I have what it takes to do the kind of thing that she did, especially being a lady. What would you say to them?
I would say, if you're feeling because you're a lady, you're limited, then you're wrong. Because everybody says that what a man can do, a woman can do better. Like, we're the ones on top.
I don't believe that, because a man cannot give birth to a child.
Exactly, that's why we're the ones that God puts in charge.
Okay.
So, we're strong enough to give birth. Because labor is a very hard thing. Like, I've watched labor videos.
Tell them.
So, if we can do that, then I don't think there's anything in this world that can stop us from doing any other thing.
Even though I hear that there are trans men now that give birth. I don't know what entered into their heads.
I don't understand. But love flows naturally from us. So, I think that's just...
Okay, that is it. So, it has to flow from love.
Yes.
It has to flow from a heart of love to do anything brave.
Yes.
And for you as well, you're not blind. Do you have any family who is visually impaired?
No, but...
There's a reason I asked the question. So you didn't do it because you have someone at home. You did it because you felt for people whom your mommy and daddy went to help.
Yeah.
A heart of love. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to thank you both for being here. Princess Esson, winner 2012 Indomie Heroes Award. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Joshua Agbola, winner 2021 Indomie Heroes Award. Both of you have only come here to tell us that whatever you have to do has to flow from a heart of love for God and country. thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
We'll take a short break, and when we return, let's talk about some money. Well, the federal government, ministries, departments, and agencies are talking about money, security, and the rest of it. There are several others who have narrowed down their issues to the things that affected them personally. And most people are involved in disasters. When they are involved, they recover with the support of their families, friends, colleagues, and all. But the efforts of some people's health, relationships, and welfare can be extensive and sustained. Flooding is one that poses substantial social and mental health problems to many, such that they may continue over extended periods of time. Flooding can challenge the psychosocial resilience of the hardest of people. I mean, over the last 10 years, floods in Nigeria have affected millions. In common with other types of major incidents or disasters, the effects of on people's health, on relationships, welfare can be extensive and all of that. So a whole lot of things that I would like to have us discuss this afternoon with Dr. Timi Oyebode, who is a psychotherapist. And you said one other thing the other time?
A trauma expert.
Trauma expert. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
I may have experienced some form of trauma before, but I can't imagine the traumatic experience of flooding consuming your hard-earned property. For those who may just read it in the news and just walk past, what are some of the things that would be happening in the minds of those who have suffered these losses as a result of flooding that many may not really understand or be able to relate to right now?
Oh, okay. Thank you again for having me. One of the core things that happens when there's flooding or any natural disaster, in some cases, even flooding has been attached to man-made disaster based on whatever the cause of it was. But there are some that's just beyond human comprehension, and if you are involved in that, there is a lot going there. The most important thing when we talk about trauma is a sense of safety being taken away. So once a human being has to go through that emotion of, I'm not safe, security is away, there could be trauma. Now, when we talk about some of those, just like you've asked that, what's going on with people who had experienced this flooding in particular? Of course, remember, it has to do with their substantial existence, the things they own, their properties, certificates, wealth, assets, all gone within a twinkle of an eye. In fact, much more are those who actually had to be rescued, who had fears that their lives was going to go with the flood. So when we talk about mental health in this context, we know there's a lot they are battling with, from the fears of, oh, am I even going to be able to catch up all over again? Or would I recover all of this? Oh, what about nightmares? What about disturbing thoughts? What about anxiety? Some could experience depression. It could go as far as anything. And that's why those of us who are not directly affected need to be a bit more empathetic. However, like you also mentioned, how does it play out for those who are not even directly affected? Because amazing is the fact that many of us who are not directly affected could also be victims of trauma. When you have to observe and to see and to realize another human being is going through this kind of experience, and the overwhelming emotion alone could actually make it so real to you, because the brain doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. So once you could key in into the emotions, you practically could feel it the same way the direct victims are feeling it. So overall, I would say the first, importantly, is that we should be aware that it's not just a random loss, or it's not a loss that, oh, they will get over it. No, many might never get over it. And when they do, or if they do, they may never be the same again, which is why we recommend that intervention comes in quick and early. Once there is support system, particularly as regards their mental health. Some of them may be able to scale through, though, like I said, it might not be the same way ever again. They might be better off mentally now. Or if support doesn't come in, they might actually go more down.
There's a picture you painted now which brought in perhaps an even more grievous picture, which is that, I mean, they could protect themselves, at least try to protect themselves against burglary, against armed robbery, against any form of incursion, build fences, have, what's it called, CCTV, some technological security gadgets to protect themselves. But there is no way they could have been able to protect themselves against the invasion of water.
So life. Threat to life.
That which is a threat to life. I mean, so the shock of how did this happen?
Yeah.
And I didn't know it was going to come.
In fact, sir, not just even that alone. There's also the part of a guilt of surviving because they saw other people who the flood took away. So how come I survived? A father whose 2-3 kids went with the flood. A mother, a neighbor. So they are dealing with a lot. So it's not just the fact that, one, the threat to their life is there, like, oops, I could have almost died. Oh, yes, property gone. But how come I survived? My daughter didn't survive, my son didn't survive, my neighbor, my uncles didn't survive. And so they're dealing with it a lot. Or maybe someone who was holding on to someone when the flood pulled them apart. Oh, maybe I didn't hold well enough. Oh, and so you have a lot of guilt, a lot of emotions that needs to be analyzed, reinterpreted, and given in the right context for them to be able to move on.
Okay. Another, level or, category of loss, if I can put it that way, is those people who got loans, subventions, some funding that is not theirs primarily to invest in farmlands. And now it's all submerged. And, we heard from a report that our correspondent, went to take outside of town that this fellow got money to do a business, invested in rice farming. And he knows the number of days that, a rice farmland can be submerged underwater. But that by now, the number of days have been far exceeded twice over. Consequently, that investment is lost. And they are running into millions, of Naira that they have invested. Some took loans. They have to repay the loans irrespective. At least they're alive.
Yeah.
What do those do? What are they dealing with?
There's a lot, actually. I know that the business experts would always talk about, farmers having insurance and all of that. But you and I know we're in Nigeria. And as much as many of this things, as much as this is the right path to take, if those farmers were insured, maybe some of their losses could be incurred back. But the truth is, even with insurance, how many gets it back that way? And I think this is where a lot of concerns has to come in, even from the government, as regards finances, especially for those farmers, particularly those who had to take loans, those who had to take things. And what makes it a bit tight for them now is the fact that they might not even have evidences to show how far the work had gone, to show that they actually planted things or invested the money. So it could become a bit dramatic for such ones. And this is when you now have people giving up. So our own job, and this is why I said government needs to come in, government needs to help them get access to psychotherapy help. Sincerely, we need to be a bit more proactive when it comes to people's wellness mentally. Someone who lost everything, if he's able to get himself, he possibly could be able to start all over again and even pay off most of those loans.
I was joking with my producer earlier when we were coming into the studio this morning that government is trying to provide help, some form of support, some form of assistance to a good number of these victims, giving them IDP camps, internally displaced person camps, and this and that. So I was just saying jokingly, perhaps trying to compare. If someone wants to assist you to get back on your feet, let's say you are using an SUV, maybe which one now, and maybe a Ford Escape before the flooding, and you lost that Ford Escape to a flood. You know what it took you, how long it took you
to get that in the
work
first place.
and raise the money and everything to get that. Now you've lost that. You don't have that car. Government wants to support you, and they say, okay, we're so sorry about your loss. Here is a Kia Picanto. Now, the disparity is right there. I'm just concerned about the mind of the person. We have these figures. I think I saw it in the course of last week or so, or even earlier on in the week, from the Minister of Health, that something in the region of, I think, between 50 and 70 million Nigerians are living with mental health issues.
Exactly.
Most certainly, these figures will increase because of the number of people that are having to go through this now.
That's even the reported figures. We still have figures that are not reported. There's so many in the rural areas that do not even bring up their cases. And so, you know, when we talk about statistics here, we're quite poor.
Okay. So in terms of aid, what, while we can go ahead and provide food for them and all those other things, you talked about the need for psychosocial assistance.
Support, yes.
How should that be engaged now?
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, sir. Please, let's be mindful that even statistics tells us that we have just, in fact, 0.00%, 10% of psychosocial helpers available, trained available. And that is why some of us had to step into the place where when you have, when people have interest in helping others, how can we increase the helpers? How can we increase the number of available hands that could step in to help other people mentally? Because like you had said, someone who had had it all together before, and then within a twinkle of an eye, all gone. Someone said something sometimes back. It said he just bought a car. I think I had one of those ministers, and he said he was riding in that big, beautiful car, and just down the road, Robert stopped him, took his car from him, and was left on the road. And he had to move from that spot back to his house or wherever he was going. And he said it dawned on him that some few minutes ago, I was in a big car, a new brown car, and almost within less than 2, 3, 5 minutes, I became carless. And he said that was a divine moment for him. What is important for everyone who had actually had to go through such an experience is something I call mental reorientation. Being able to get your mind, be in control of that space, and be able to put things into like a block log, like arrange them into perspectives right there in the mind. Because the truth is, no one will understand your loss right now. Only you, because what you went through to acquire whatever that thing is, you knew it. Others might not. People might trivialize, is it not just a car? Oh, thank God you're alive. And which is part of what I say to people. Don't say that to trauma victims. Don't say to them, oh, thank God you're alive. You can always get it all back together. No, it doesn't work that way. Because like I said earlier, some may never get it back together. So what is important is the individual, first of all, should be determined. Call up the fighter spirit within you. For you to have gone this far in the first place, you can stand up again. So when the individual is able to put up that fighting spirit, the next thing is to be able to now have self-talks, conversations with yourself, to say to yourself, no one might understand you right now, but you want to be deliberate to make sure that in all of this, you do not lose your sanity. Once your sanity is intact also, then we can now start talking about, okay, what next should you do? And I think that is why I would always encourage you to get into therapy. If government is not even making it available for you, please, there are therapists around. There are helpers around who would sit with you to put into perspective everything that happened and then help you to start all over as needful. For government...
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sir. For government, I'm going to emphasize it again. There are social workers in town. There are psychotherapists. There are professional counselors who are trained in the act of mental health counseling. Okay? And I would always want that whenever there are emergencies like this, the call for volunteers, the call for people in this circle should be made so that they know that they are needed and they could step up into the positions as at that time. But it's another thing when you know you are available, but you are not aware that your service could be needed. So, yes, I would always say this also to professional counselors, psychotherapists, social workers, mental health experts, any one of us out there. Once there are crises like this, maybe we no longer have to wait for the government to reach out to us. Maybe we can reach out to them, but through which media? How? So we need to have that well spelled out for professionals to be able to step in.
This is one of those those platforms.
Yes, they should call on us, sincerely.
Okay, but add to that. Now, let's just sincerely hope that government is listening now, because our people really, really do need to have their heads together if they're going to contribute to national development. In this same space, I mean, we've talked about lots of things. We understand that there are more than 600 people whose lives have been lost to
this particular one.
This disaster. Fathers, mothers, children, uncles, aunties, brothers, sisters, to some people who are still very well alive. How do we begin to quantify and minister to people in the area of the loss of a sibling, a child, a brother, a sister, a spouse, or something? Earlier, we had a conversation here with a young lady who said she got a Heroes Award from some corporate organization for rescuing her brother from a fire. Now, she could rescue her elder brother. But those right now, some of them watching us, have been unable to rescue any of these more than 600 people. How do we begin to help them see things?
Okay, so in that case, we need now to call upon our community spirit. And so directly, those around them immediately would have to step in first. And I think that would have to do with the direct government in the States.
But don't forget that some of the people, you said it the other time yourself, you held the hand of someone, you lost that person, the person died. You're still going through the trauma of losses.
Yes.
Now you have to deal with the trauma of another lost human being and all. So
and so that's why the first thing will be the community support. The community support now is going to be directly for those who are involved. They need to come together and support one another. First of all, the survivors. Okay, so if you have survived this, it's not a time to talk about enmity. It's not a time to, you hurt me before. It's a time when human had to go through high extent of loss. It is one of the things that binds us together and calls upon our inner strength. So it's time for them to synergize and hold one another. That's the survivors first. Now, in the bid of doing that, trying to see who needs what, we're also definitely going to call on all the religious bodies that are in their community there, the churches, the imams, the traditional leaders. They need to now step in, because it's not just enough to be there praying for people. There is need for action now. Now, this is inclusive of visitations. While we're still talking about, and as much as we can give them to recuperate anything lost, material things, and all kind of support we can give to them, it is now. And like I said earlier, this is time psychotherapists, professional counselors, mental health experts need to step in so that if we can mitigate that part of them, nationally, we might not feel so much of the impact. But the truth is these people had gone through a lot. And they need help to be able to even be able to move on. Talk less of getting it all back.
Okay. I'm glad you spoke to communities.
Yes, sir.
Because these things happened in states.
Yeah.
And consequently, it gives responsibility to some state governments as well. We understand that a number of states have been going out. River State has gone out. I think Kogi State has also gone out to begin to assist people, sending them supplies. The federal government has been sending to a good number of states that have had this.
That's true.
So the states themselves have been doing something.
Good.
So can you, because I also know that, well, I want to believe that the ministries of health
in those
each
communities
of these states will have some of these health angles that you're talking about. How much of the issues people, the flood victims, direct victims and indirect victims, how much of what they are going through now would have to do with, how much of it will be cultural? Because there are those who have sentimental attachments based on generations upon generations, this is our ancestral home, ancestral pen, ancestral pencil, ancestral plate, ancestral spoon, and all. How much of that, is involved here, and how serious is that in the scheme of mental health?
Oh, yes, it's highly serious. I recollect hearing one of the leaders in the community there talking about, the flood is not a new thing to them. It happens. Maybe the one for this year came with higher magnitude compared to what has always been. And immediately they started giving interpretations. Well, some people have said, maybe it's the God of the lands, maybe this, maybe that. What is important, we cannot take culture away from the people. And that's a bit why it's difficult also to take the people away from the place. Because you might say, if they've gone through that before, why are they still there? But the truth is, it's their land, it's their place. And there's a way humans are attached to the land. Now, in this scenario, it is ideal that we understand culture has a lot to play when it comes to our mental health also. In fact, for many experts, they know that for you to help anybody mentally, you need to have an understanding of that person's culture. Because what you might think is an awkward behavior may actually be acceptable in that culture. So being able to look holistically at their wellness is what is important now. Putting their culture into perspective, does these communities respectively, and also being able to now say, okay, you know what, above all, what is important is how you're going to fare again. If you believe that this was a cause of the gods or is a cause of the land or something, how do we move on? Do you need prayers? That's why when we talk about psychosocial support, it's actually holistic. It goes into the spiritual aspect, also the physical aspect, and then the emotional aspect. So you see, all three is what is needful now to be able to tackle all this. So we can't separate any of it. The spiritual part has to come in, particularly because we're dealing with culture, and spirituality is also a culture, one way or the other. While some people could have so much attachment to some beliefs, and that is why they might not move. Okay, but we have to understand that, and that's why we can't judge them. We just need to help them to be able to take a grip and be whole parts of them.
The transition is an issue, though, right?
Yes. The transition is going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. We're not going to say to anyone that it's going to be easy on you. But one thing I know, with my years of experience with working with trauma victims, is that each of us heal at different times, different paces. But if you're consistent on the process of healing, you would also get there. Healing is a journey. It's not a destination.
But then there's also the motivation to want to heal.
Exactly. And that's where they now need therapists. Because for you to even have that motivation, you need someone to help you to put things in perspective and give you the morale and let you know where the healing journey could take you through. So that's why I'm emphasizing the place of counselors being called in to help out in all of this.
Now, there are those who have, should I call them, local counselors.
Okay.
You know, I'm just saying.
Yes, you're right, sir.
Because, you know, there are those who, once something like that happens, say, you know, just accept it that way. It's just the way it is. God that caused it and all those things. How helpful are those?
In fact, such people would cause more damage than good. Because when some of the words used, when the person goes through them later, it brings them down more. So specifically, we'd always say we don't need counselors by passion or counselors by, okay, you know, I'm an elder, I can talk to you, because they would make sincere errors and lead people more down the path that could be more painful for them. And that's why I'm emphasizing trained professional experts. They're available. They're available. They are right here in this same country with us. And we just need to let them take their role.
Okay.
You know, and please, sir, also in addition to that is also understanding that there are keywords that we don't say. But, you know, like we said, those people might not know. So when you said, oh, sorry about it, you know, God would recoup you back, you'll be fine again. Words like that, they're not healthy. Oh, maybe you caused it. No, they're not healthy. Oh, okay, what should I do to help you? How can you help them? That should be the question, not what, because there are so many things going on in their head and they are there thinking, why won't you talk that way? Because you are not in my shoes. So it's needful that we become more empathetic, even as a community, as a people, all of us, including the press.
It's interesting that, you know, we have a default setting in our part of the world. You just want to solve the person's problem. So empathy is a language that is completely straight to us. If I can say it, I just want to empathize with you. What does it even mean? Some people be wondering.
Sometimes all they need might just be your silence, might just be you there giving them a hug. Might not be about provisions. It might not be about what solutions. No, sometimes all they need is silence, as golden as that can be. So I think overall, for us all that might be listening today, maybe we could take one or two key things from this.
So silence also speaks. Now I know.
A lot.
Dr. Timi Oyebode, psychotherapist and trauma expert, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation this morning and for helping us heal from this tremendous loss that we're still going through.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. There are some people in the world, one way in which they try to help people is to make you laugh. They try to help us reduce the mental health figures, but how well or not they are doing, I guess we'll find out in our home stretch coming up right now. Well, our artist of the week is not that fellow you're looking at, no. Maybe one of these days we'll find a way to bring him. But our artist of the week is an inspiring broadcast journalist, political enthusiast, ideas inventor, content developer. And can we just say, it's one human being, I don't know. I hope you find him interesting this morning. He goes by the comic name Husband Material. His name is Ezugu. Chukwudi Ezugu. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Happy weekend, sir.
Please, I'm not sir.
Sorry, sir. Sorry. Sorry. I was trained with a lot of respect. So sometimes I forget that some certain things can be very formal. So apologies. I wanted to add sir, but apologies.
I don't know. The people that I know that everything is with respect are Yoruba people. Your name is not Yoruba.
Yeah, but I was born and raised in Lagos. In fact, I have more Yoruba friends than Igbo friends. In fact, some people look at me and call me Omo Igbo to so Yoruba being call me. My Yoruba is even more fluent than my Igbo language.
Are you sure that you will not go to one Yoruba radio station?
I can try. I have done a couple of stuff in the Yoruba language that, many people would not know. And I credited them, very good grades in my WAEC for Yoruba language. Yes. I can write also the Yoruba language.
So we are one Yoruba proverb.
Ile ọba tó jóná, ẹwà ló bù sí.
So what does that mean?
Okay, so it is essentially looking at the fortune that comes from misfortune. If the palace of, a royal father gets burnt to the ground now, if you're constructing a new one, you're definitely going to ensure that it is far more palatial than the other one. I
assure you, some Yoruba professors are coming for you.
Yeah. Yes.
So where did the husband material come from?
Okay, so over the years, I have played with various monikers, nicknames, and I wanted something that could elicit a conversation. I have tried, growing up, I went to a public secondary school, and everybody in Lagos, I am very certain, had one nickname or the other. Maybe a physical feature or just something about you. So
Give us some examples.
In primary school, they used to call me Chilavet because I was a very good goalkeeper. And when I got into senior secondary school, I was really very skinny, very tall for my age. So they used to call me Fela of Isolo. Baba Fela used to be very they used to call me Fela of Isolo. So I played with so many nicknames, and it got to the point where I wanted something that, people could identify with. And you know what the ladies say now? They pray for a man who is tall, dark, and handsome. I am 6'4". I am dark-skinned. And to the glory of God, I am wonderfully and fearfully made. So I think that it suits me.
Okay, so you've created a number of comedy skits.
Yes.
So please speak to how you came across all those dwarfs.
Yes.
Not just the dwarfs, but then the other one that is not a dwarf. that is a dwarf.
So we all work together in the same media organization.
Okay.
And, as people who are creatives, we decided to just dig deep and use our talents to, inspire so many people. And, in Nigeria now, people are going through, various challenges. But it is in the little way that you bring joy into their lives and ensure that you keep them going and inspire them that you're going to, render that service. First, for Nedu Wazobia, it was Imao, my God, who actually said, you guys can actually, work together like Arnold Schwarzenegger and, so when I look at the features, and so we decided to give it a try because Imao was working on something and Nedu had to play a certain character. He was trying to come up with ideas, and I just shared something, and Imam was like, wow, this is good. He did it, and it became very viral. So he said we could create more. That was the Sister Nkechi character, where he would, start shrieking, "It's Nkechi, shrieking!" and talk about, certain moral deficiencies in our society, and then end with an advice. So we did that, and it became really very, very popular. And I told him that we cannot continue just doing these things. We need to evolve. So we got the idea of, he had always done the Alhaji Musa character. Okay. So we got Alhaji Musa, we added landlord, because there are several people who have, whether you like it or not, every Nigerian has an experience, whether as the owner of the property or as somebody who leases the property. So we came up with the landlord. We have experimented with a lot. And I hope that we can continue to evolve and continue to inspire people. For Unkubi and Big Bash and so many other of the little people that I work with, who are colleagues, we work together. So sometimes I might say, I think if you do this, it will be nice. Let's try and see what we can do. So we just try as much as we can to create. The whole idea is to inspire people and most importantly, also make money from it.
You will come to that make money. We'll come to that one. But the reason I'm asking, and most of the time, you keep yourself behind the camera. Is that deliberate?
I think, yes, I believe it's deliberate because to the glory of God, I consider myself to be a man of many parts. And what I prioritize would not give me the leverage to just be everywhere. So I would say, okay, if this is what I prioritize and this is what I want people to see me as, I would rather people see me as, say, for example, Ezugu Chukudi in all my glory. And then when I do husband material, they see me as husband material. So they can tell the difference. There are several people who have done it in the past and have been very, very successful. So I am on that path, and I am hoping that I can draw a distinction between this guy who does, this, and this other person who does that. And you know what they say now, Onokon Waja. Yes. As you maximize your talent, you collect here, and you're okay.
I wonder if you can still speak any Igbo. This one.
Yeah? I express myself in Igbo language also.
Okay, tell me, growing up, evolving into who you are and what you have become, were there tragedies that you had to endure or go through that caused you to introspect and bring out some golden human that you have become or are becoming today? Because there are many people who are unable to move off from a past tragedy. They just literally stay there or die there or get rot there or something. But is there any such thing that you can remember and say, I'm not going to let this define me?
So I am from a very large family, and I did not get all the love growing up. By love, I mean, your parents have, then it was 5th born, 6th born, 7th born. I was the 6th. And so, before it would trickle down to me, the thing would not expire. You don't know the black market before it trickled down to me. So I was always in the company of my peers and people who were older than I was. There were a couple of, personal, I don't know if I should use the term tragedies now, but there were a couple of personal experiences that informed what I do and shaped who I have become today, or this journey that I am embarking on. My dad is a master storyteller. And, he used to tell us stories about the Civil War, life in the village. He lived for most parts in the northern part of the country. So, he would relay these stories, and it was really very interesting. And so from that little boy who lived in a solo area of Lagos, it was like he opened my eyes to the world, and I saw a lot of things, and I read a lot. And, as somebody who started off really very early, mingling with people who were older than I was, I experienced life faster than my peers. So, for example, after my secondary school education at age 16, I had to get a job. For some people, maybe they were still, living, they were still with their parents and collecting chop money or just helping them out. But I had to get an actual job.
When you say you had to get a job, was it because you had to or because you wanted to?
I had to contribute to the family economy. I had to contribute to the family economy. And, so I consider myself an intelligent person. And like I said, I mingled with people who were older than I was, and so learned a lot about life. And I quickly learned that, you had to take charge if you wanted to make your own decisions. Like, for example, if I give my dad, say, Papa, take this 10,000, use and join rent, I become a stakeholder in the scheme of things.
So you become part of the firstborn.
Yes, I become. So if he wants to take any decision, he will call me and say, my son, what do you think? Because if we are contributing money at the end, I also contribute my own quota. So I had to do all of these as quickly as possible. And it exposed me, more to life. And so I decided that there were so many young people who needed to be inspired. And you don't have to get to the age where they'll say, okay, this person is, say, maybe 10 years older than I am, and so this person can inspire me. It's essentially about experience. If you have had this experience and you can teach younger people so that they don't make the same mistakes that others have made, I think it's okay to do so. So some personal experiences inspired me to say, this is who I want to be, and this is what I'll do to inspire people who were younger than I was, or my peers.
Okay. So was there any... What brought you into this content creation, this comedy genre in particular, of content creation?
So I am very sure that every Nigerian growing up, had Sam Loco, the late Sam Loco Efe, Baba Salah. When, as students of public secondary school in Lagos, there was Obalende, Atole, Pisi Bobodi, how are you? So these were people who traversed the length and breadth of Nigeria. or people who, from the TV screens, inspired a lot of us. I mean, you could sit and watch the movies and laugh your head off. And so I decided it would be okay to just see people laugh, because the very joy of watching people just ease their pressure and just enjoy what you do, it is so heartwarming. Then number 2, I was of the opinion that you can teach through these means. You don't have to wait until, it is told by a Catholic priest or a reverend gentleman before there's a moral in the story. So even in comedy, you can pass messages. I have evolved over time to become really very, very big on satire. And I know that attention span is really very short. Not too many people are willing to sit down and read a book. So in the little way that you can get their attention, you get their attention, because they are young people. This is what they want. It happens really very, very fast. Quick, witty, metaphors. This is what they want. But you must not lose the message at the end. So whether it is teaching them that it's important to maybe go out, register to vote, and also participate actively in the process, or ensuring that you don't lose the value of who you are because you consider yourself well-traveled or educated, and so our traditional practices become a cake to you. We use this as a means to let people remember who they are and be very aware of themselves.
It's interesting. But anyway, so you are a political enthusiast as well.
Yes.
And I know that this is one of the areas in which your sarcastic element will come in.
Yes.
So the general elections is right ahead.
Yes.
And there is no doubt that the noise is out there.
Yes.
Depending on who you are, young, old, whatever, you have your thing.
Yes.
Your interest. But you're also a broadcast journalist.
Yes.
Which gives you, should I say, a challenge or a responsibility.
Yes.
Of the tenets of journalism.
True.
Balance, fairness, and all. But you are a political enthusiast.
Yes.
Voila.
So, I explained that I want to draw a distinction. So, for example, as a broadcast journalist, I know I am guided by the code. And there are certain things I cannot say, even if I consider them my personal opinion, and I hold them, I want to express them strongly. There are certain things I cannot say on the job. But as the person who is not guided by certain codes, or a person who owes it as a sort of duty to society, there are certain things I can say. For example, husband material can do things that people are saying, after his husband material. Then Ezugu Chukudi can do things that, this is Ezugu Chukudi. So there's a distinction. But in the end, it is important that you do not lose sight of the goal. And the goal is to ensure that you help people make informed choices. So while you are guided by the code, you can point out the facts and let them see for themselves. And let them know that, if you decide that you're going to
go in a particular
direction, this is what the end would be. But here you can be forceful and knock it into their heads and tell them, this is what you must do. So there's a distinction.
What set off your interest in political enthusiasm?
I think I was exposed to political literature at a very young age. Growing up, I grew up I'm still growing, Sha.
But, really?
Yeah, I'm still.
Are you sure?
I'm still the child of my parents.
Oh, really?
Yes. My mom still calls me on Sunday to ask me if I went to church. So I think that I'm still that little boy that they believe that they raised. So growing up, I was exposed to political literature. The magazines in the age of, it was the military administration of General Sani Abacha. Ibrahim Babangida, General Sani Abacha. And, there were detailed magazines at the time that used to, you would see words like Abacha Gulag, the death chamber. So I was exposed to such literature. And so it helped me not consider it strenuous immediately, and it helped develop my interest. For some people, once you begin to talk about politics, they lose it. I'm not interested. But for me, I become even more excited because I was exposed to political literature at a very young age. And then I tried to study law,
law not green.
Law, no, they're not, jam me first. Jam me. Then I tried to study mass communications. Eventually, when I got in at my fourth try, no pass. the result no they come out. It was at that time where they would cancel an entire center, you know. But
who did you offend?
I did not offend anybody because I even tried. There was a time I even wanted to move to Ogun State because I felt that the mothers in Lagos were fanning my destiny. I did not want me to go. So by my fourth try, I decided that if I, with my big age, if I add studying law with NYSC to it will, and law school, it will be too late. So I wanted mass communications. I wasn't able to get in to study mass communications. The plan was to study history and international studies for a year in UNN and then switch to mass communications. But I started studying history and international studies and borrowed a course in mass communications and discovered that, with all due respect, this mass com, if I say, it's supposed to just be waiting person to study for 3 weeks, can't they go? But this history, you know, and I was lucky to have been exposed to our Baba history. Yes, Professor Adiele Afigbo, you know. So
you had to say it in Yoruba to...
Yes, I had to say it so that people would understand. And so it was a turning point for me because I was like, wow. So I have this man I read about in my government textbooks, you know, in my history classes. I have had the opportunity to sit in his class. This is what I want. And I have no regrets whatsoever because it gives me the opportunity to read widely, not just politics, sports, entertainment, religion, anything. And I feel that I'm somebody who is open-minded. I know they run from arguments. In fact, I love it. And so if you would want to express yourself, I would want to listen to what you say. And because I would like to counter what you have said or present my facts, I pay very good attention to what you say. So I think that everything turned out for my good and it's helping me a great deal. Sometimes some people see me in person and think I am way older. Maybe because my voice is crude and then when they hear certain things, they believe, this person was somebody who was born in the 60s or 50s or 70s. And when they see me, they're like, now you they talk all this kind of thing. I say, nah, me, but we thank God, the books they. If everybody they read, your age go they big, but your face, go show.
Well, talking about everyone reading, young people today, there are those who believe that young people, okay, maybe generally, if you want to hide anything from an African, hide it in a book. I listened to, what's this comedian's name? Kevin Hart. You may have seen the video as well, where he said his mom told him, if you want me to pay your rent, read your Bible. And all of that. It was only when he opened his Bible that the money he was supposed to use for his rent fell out. So in terms of reading, what have you seen about young people? And what ground needs to be covered by young people in terms of reading or getting information that is useful to them in order to be major players in the country that belongs to them?
I think first off, the problem is with education because you cannot blame the ignorant person first for their foundation. People are born into these situations. So what you do is a conscious effort to break free. But unfortunately, certain people understand that the information you possess would place you in a position not to be treated in a certain way by a particular class in the society. So they will do everything to stagnate your growth and progress. So the funny thing is young people read, but it is what interests them. Because, for example, things have changed. You go on social media, and it is a story of maybe two people fighting over some rich man or some beautiful lady, or the story of a gossip. You see 10,000 comments. There are 10 slides. Everybody would read the slide and begin to give hot takes. You begin to wonder, the one that talks about maybe going out to get your PVC, nobody says anything about it. There are 20 comments, 200 comments. But the one that is about this one snatch this one husband, this one collect this one wife, there are 10,000 comments. Why are people interested in this? So it's a thing of interest. What I tell people is that if you want to break free, because the person who wants you to continue in a particular trajectory wants you to be in that situation. But if you would want to break free, you must make a conscious effort. There are a lot of things that I have had to unlearn. I attended a public school. There's something they call tap current, where as a young boy, you can touch the opposite gender in a certain way To us, it was fun. You can also give people nicknames. They used to call me Eti Eworo. Growing up, you know, my ears were really very, very...
It's gone smaller now.
Yes, because God has... yes. Eleti Eworo. All those things.
Yeah.
So
people need to get interested in what they are not interested in.
It must be a personal decision.
Okay. Well, we could continue on and on because it sounded really, really interesting on and on. But hey, guess what? Our time has gone.
Wow.
Exactly. That's what happens when you're having fun. But we have to thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Chukwudi Ezugwu, also known as Husband Material.
Thank you so much.
Well, we haven't seen Husband Material today. I've only seen Chukwudi, but maybe another time we'll bring that on. We'll have to thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And that is how we conclude on the program Sunrise this morning. Thank you for the privilege of being a part of your morning and for coming into ours as well. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and God bless you.